657 Boulevard has been the subject to my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have him put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched the house in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out.
Hello my loves and welcome back to another true crime video. Today I'm going to be talking about the case of the Watcher house. If you haven't done so already, or if you're new here, then welcome, and don't forget to like, share and especially subscribe to my channel for more future content like this. Today's story takes place in the year 2014, that is on June 2014. And to find out what happened in the story of the Watcher house, we have to go to Westfield in New Jersey. There, the Brothers family, consisting of Derek and Maria Brothers and their 3 little children, were buying a house, a real dream house, for about $1.3 million. Also, they did quite a bit of renovation work because they wanted the house to be unique. They wanted it to be their dream home. Even before they moved in, the first letter of the so-called Watcher arrived. It was the evening of June 5th, 2014, and it was up to Derek to check the mailbox because they were about to moving in their new dream home. And first of all, he didn't see anything too suspicious. He saw a couple of bills, he saw some offerings, nothing too suspicious as already mentioned, but there was one letter within the mailbox that, well, raised his attention. But as soon as he opened the envelope and started reading the letter, his mood dropped immediately. He actually felt panic rising within him. The letter states,
657 Boulevard has been the subject to my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have him put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched the house in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out.
Of course, Derek and Maria started panicking immediately because they were up to move in this dream house. They've put so much money in this, and they're about to move in together with their little children. And after the first letter, the Brothers family was suspicious, and they were looking at the neighbors because someone had to be the Watcher. But what should they have been doing? So only a few days later, after this first strange, creepy, potentially threatening letter arrived, a second letter arrived. The letter says,
657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you're upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will I sleep in the attic? Or will you sleep in the second? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedroom facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who's in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on, and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Brothers family. Welcome to the product of your breed. Greed it was that brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I will be watching.
If this is not scary and frightening, then I don't know. The woods, which are mentioned in this letter, are the previous owners of the house. So the Brothers family, of course, immediately contacted the Woods, who sold them the house and who did not say anything of strange letters. First of all, the Woods family, the Woods said that they never received any form of strange or threatening letters. But after Derek and Maria continued asking them and put more pressure on them, they finally gave in and told them that they themselves, the Woods themselves, also received a letter from the Watcher. Well, they just threw it away, so they were no longer able to show the Brothers family the letter they themselves have received from the Watcher. And they also stated that they did not think too much of it because they were living in this house for almost 2 decades. They were buying the house in the 1990s, so they were living there for over 2 decades. And the only time they received a strange letter was a couple of days prior to their final moving out day, prior to moving out. And thus, they did actually not think, seemingly, allegedly, too much of it, and decided that it would not be necessary to inform the Brothers family about this incident, as they thought of it to be an incident. Within the second letter, the Watcher also, which was not included in the sample I presented you here, the Watcher also stated that he saw into one of the children's bedrooms, and this bedroom was not visible from the streets, so because there were bushes and trees covering the window, and he knew that this child was drawing something in there, so he could describe what this child was doing in his room and what the child was drawing and what the child was drawing on. So this is suspicious, definitely, because the only people who would have been able to see inside the room of the children would have been neighbors who, would have access to a point of view from beside the house. And this was not calming for the Brothers family. Plus, the Watcher also knew the nicknames of their children. So this basically means that either the Watcher had hidden cameras and microphones inside 657 Boulevard, inside the house, and thus had access to all the information, because he could spy on the family, which is creepy as hell, actually. Or the Watcher was actually close by all the time, maybe being someone walking by, maybe being someone living nearby, maybe being one of the neighbors. And that's actually what the Brothers family thought, that it would be only possible for a neighbor to have access to all these information. And this is basically when the Langford family were, under suspicion. Especially Derek Brothers started suspecting the son of the family, 60-year-old Michael Langford, who was still living in the house where, together with his parents and his other siblings, next to the house of the Brothers family. And the Langfords would have been able to see from their house on, inside the bedroom where the children were sleeping and where this specific child has been made his drawing. So this was odd. And also the other neighbors who were living in the area for an even longer period, described Michael Langford, the 60-year-old son of the Langford family, who also lived there. They described him as odd, but most of them also described him as harmless. So police also investigated whether or not the Langfords could have, be potential suspects in the case, and they also interrogated Michael Langford, of course. But the police actually stated that Michael Langford was not the watcher, so that he basically had nothing to do with this. But they also stated that the letters would stop from now on, so after they've talked to Michael Langford. And I find this information to be pretty interesting, because how would police know that the letters would stop immediately after they've talked to Michael Langford if Michael Langford has nothing to do with this? What's also interesting is the Westfield in New Jersey, where the story takes place, where 657 Boulevard is actually standing and where the Brothers family plan to move in, is considered one of the safest areas and neighborhoods in the country. So the Derrick brothers still saw Michael Langford as the primary suspect in the case. In fact, he was so sure that Michael Langford must have had something to do with all of these strange letters and all of these strange things going on, that he even paid a private investigator to find out more information about the entire thing going on, because he thought it is not safe enough for his family to live inside this house, and I totally agree. The third letter would arrive only a couple of days after the second letter, and the third letter states that
657 Boulevard is turning on me. It is coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend and now it is my enemy? I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass, and for you to bring the young blood back to me. 657 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing it and let it alone.
I mean, this is creepy as hell. He refers to the brothers' children as the young blood. He asks where the young blood is going to play. He asks if the young blood was about to go to the basement, and whether and if he was this young blood, the young blood, he would not go play in the basement, because this would be too far away and the parents wouldn't be able to hear the screams from the basement. This is so creepy. And of course, Derrick and Maria did not want their children to be around. I mean, the watcher already knew their names. He even knew their nicknames. Names only close family members and close friends of the family would have been able to know. Or someone who is constantly stalking and watching the family, like the watcher. In fact, it got so bad for the brothers' family that Derrick actually suffered from severe insomnia, and he also suffered from depression due to the pressure, and Maria got diagnosed with some form of PTSD. And the brothers' family was also not able to move in the house. They've put so much money in it. They've put so much money in it. They've put over $1.3 million in this house, almost $1.4 million in this house. They did so much renovation work. They put in so much effort, so much time, so much money inside this house. It was the house of their dreams. It was such a beautiful place to be and to raise their children in. And now they were unable to move in, although anything would have been ready and, well, just waiting for them to move in. But they were not able to move in because they were scared for the well-being of themselves, and of course even more for the well-being of their children. And of course also the children started asking questions like, why can't we move in the house? Because they also wanted to move. They also wanted to, well, get in an environment where they would be able to stay in. honestly doubt that the children knew what was going on completely, but they definitely must have known that something's odd. Yeah, the private investigator did not find out basically anything that would lead to an arrest of someone. And up to this day, we don't know who the watcher is. We don't know who was sending all of these strange letters. But in fact, there was a DNA test going on the letters, or better say on the envelopes of the letters. And this DNA testing revealed that the DNA was actually from a female. So yeah, we don't know exactly where the DNA was taken from. As far as I'm aware, the DNA was taken from the envelope. So in my opinion, this does not say too much, because it could have also been possible that it was just a female mail delivery person who was touching the envelope and whose DNA was on this. This would have been possible too, so we don't know exactly if the person who was writing these letters was actually a female or not. But the DNA that is found on the letter was actually compared to the mother of Michael Langford, so of Abby Langford's DNA, and this revealed that there is no match. So they could rule out Abby Langford. And Abby Langford would have had actually a motive to do this, because she was a real estate makler, and she was a real estate agent, and a real estate agent would have got quite some provision for selling a house like this. And thus Abby Langford, also connected with Michael Langford, who was a primary suspect early on, would have had a motive, but still her DNA did not fit the DNA found on the envelope. And we don't know if the DNA found on the envelope actually belongs to the person writing these letters. We also know that the letters were seemingly sent from a town about 20 miles away from where the Brothers family actually lived, so from Westfield in New Jersey, 20 miles away, still in New Jersey. But that also does not say a lot, because we can only say that the letters were sent there, but we do not know if the person who wrote the letters lives there, or if the person who wrote the letters even wrote the letters there and lives there, and yeah, not just randomly drove there to, well, give up the letters to let them be delivered to the Brothers family, because maybe to cover the tracks of this person doesn't know at all. We don't know exactly. There is also an FBI investigator who, well, should make a profile of the person writing these letters. And yeah, the FBI investigator basically could only find out that the person writing these letters would be old, which is not a huge surprise. No one was thinking this was an individual in his early 20s, for instance. The investigator could also not say how old this person would be, just that it would be an elderly individual. And the FBI investigator also stated that it would have most likely been an individual who was well read, because there are no cursing going on in these letters. And this is rather surprising, because we know that the individual writing these letters was emotionally very involved in the situation and actually cared so much for this house that he took time to write these letters and to watch the family to make sure that the house was treated well. We don't know if Michael Langford was well read. He was 60 and thus he was elderly, but we don't know if he was well read. We don't know if he had if he used curse words in his usual way of writing or in his usual way of speaking or talking. We cannot say this, but the profile itself is pretty vague. After there were basically no primary suspects left and the police couldn't do much of it, the private investigator did not know what to do next. The family decided that this situation was not suitable for them anymore. They did want to get out of the situation, of course. Who wouldn't want to get out of the situation? And thus they decided to sell the house again after only 6 months. But as you can imagine, the house now had a certain reputation, and who would want to live in a house that has a stalker connected to it? Well, basically no one does, because the story of the stalker had gotten so much media coverage at this point. And also suing the Woods family did not bring them anything. At first the Brothers family actually even tried to sell the house a little for a price even a little bit higher than the price they usually bought it themselves, which made a lot of people suspicious. But on the other hand side, they also had, as previously mentioned, a lot of renovation work going on. So they put also in quite some money inside this house and in the renovation of the house. So even if they would have sold it for a bit more money than they originally bought it for, they would have still made quite some loss with the house. The price was changed at least twice because no one wanted the house. And yeah, in the end, it was sold in 2019. So 5 years later, 4 to 5 years later, 5 years later, because no one wanted the house and it was so difficult to find a potential buyer. And only in 2019, the house was actually sold with a loss of $400,000. So this is immense, and there are so many people out there speculating that the Brothers family themselves actually wrote the letters because they wanted to sell the house and make profit out of it, which is highly unlikely considering that they sold the house for a loss of $400,000. Of course, there are also people saying that the Brothers family did not want to make profit with the selling of the house itself, but they wanted to make profit by selling the rights of the story to, for instance, Netflix or Hollywood in general. This does also not make too much sense because, well, they would have had to start that early on, that they would have to write the first letter even before they moved in to the Woods family. Still, the family tried to, in the time frame of these 5 years, and no one wanted to buy the house, they actually decided that they wanted to split the property into 2 parts and just destroy the house in order to sell the property and, well, at least make some gains out of it. But the problem was that the neighborhood, that the board of the neighborhood would have had to approve this decision. And they actually denied it. And the reason why they denied it was pretty vague, because they said, well, the properties, each part of the property, so if they would have split it into 2 parts, each part would have had 67 feet. And there was some rule going on in this neighborhood that each property would have to have 3 feet more, so 70 feet. And thus they denied, and it was not, the Brothers family was not able to just destroy the house and split the property and sell the property down to 2 different owners and to, well, not get completely financially ruined probably because of 3 feet per property. And it's also interesting that the same board agreed to such a project a couple of years later, and there the difference was even larger than only 3 feet. So it was pretty clear that the neighbors did not like the Brothers family, probably because they were bringing terror in the neighborhood and they were bringing chaos and media coverage, and, well, the neighbors did not like the Brothers family. And in their opinions, well, either they were responsible themselves or they did just not like them, because even if they were getting these strange letters, they could have just ignored it and lived their happily ever after, in the opinions of the neighbors probably. But no, they decided to bring terror into the neighborhood. The Brothers family finally decided to rent the house because no one wanted to buy it. And when the person who was deciding to rent the house moved in, the 4th letter of the Watcher arrived. This one stated,
"You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around, you idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and you're too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. The nice soldiers of the boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher.
The people who decided to rent the house did not want to live there anymore, and the Brothers family actually had to give them the permission to move out and not pay rent anymore, because they were only able to find renters or to find people who were interested in renting 657 Boulevard if they accepted that they would be able to leave whenever they want as soon as another letter of the Watcher would arrive. This was the condition the Brothers family had to agree upon in order to find basically anyone who, well, would have been willing to rent out the property. After this happened, the Brothers family of course lost an important source of income. They actually had quite a bit of financial burden going on because of this entire Watcher thing. And Derek Brothers was in fact so mad at the neighbors who denied his project of splitting the property into 2 halves because of 3 feet per property, that he himself decided to write letters to his neighbors in the name of the Watcher. And later on he apologized for what he did. He said this was not right, but he was angry, he was devastated, he was not knowing what to do next, and he just wanted to have a little revenge. But this did not look good for him, because there were already people out there who believed that he had something to do with these letters himself, so that he faked them from the very beginning on in order to get, for instance, a movie deal and to make profits out of this. And yeah, also a lot of neighbors thought so. And now it was proven that he faked letters of the Watcher himself. This did not look good. Well, I will not go into all speculations. I will rest it there, because I think, in my opinion, the most important things have been said. There are so many more speculations out there. It's also worth mentioning that Maria Brothers actually grew up in this, close to Westfield in New Jersey. So it's also possible that someone from her past may have had a desire for revenge and thus decided to play the Watcher. There is also a girl calling the police because she thought that maybe her boyfriend would be the Watcher, because he was always playing this video game and there was a role in it which was called the Watcher, and he was also not living that far away. Yeah, that's also possible, but I think, in my opinion, if I should say what I think, I would be the least surprised. I'm not saying it is like this, I'm just saying I would be the least surprised if it would have turned out that Michael Langford at least knew more about the entire thing. But I don't know if he had anything to do with this. I am just saying this would be the option I would be the least surprised if this one would turn out to be true. I think that the Watcher really lived in the neighborhood. I think he knew what he was doing. I think he had to have some form of motive. I don't know why he was doing this. He definitely was kind of upset that there is so much media coverage going on. So I absolutely doubt that the Watcher did this to get attention, maybe to get global attention and to get famous or anything, because he also never revealed his true identity, and he was definitely, as he stated in his last letter, he was upset that there is so many news trucks around. He did not like this. What is also interesting is that after the 4th letter, no more letters have arrived. So the Brothers family sold the house in 2019. As far as we know, the Watcher never wrote a letter again. So there are only these 4 letters. And yeah, these letters were creepy as hell. That's definitely the case. But I'm a little bit suspicious, because how is it possible that the Woods never received letters except when they were actually already planning to move out? And how is it possible that the people buying this house in 2019 did not receive any strange letters? If this makes it a little bit more likely that maybe the Brothers family themselves actually had something to do with this. And a lot of people speculate that they did not realize how expensive it would all be to, well, renovate this house, to make it perfect, to buy it and to run it, basically, to keep it, that they underestimated the costs. And this is possible because it is indeed strange that no more letters arrive right now or arrived in the past to previous owners, because the Watcher himself stated in his first letter, or in the second letter, that his father also watched the house. And his father allegedly watched the house from the 1920s onwards. So why, this is about 100 years where there had been some watchers around. Why did only letters receive when the Brothers family were moving in, or shortly before the Brothers family were moving into the previous owner's son? And I also think that the Watcher was someone who knew the neighborhood and knew what was going on, because he mentioned the name of the previous owners, the Woods, in his second letter. And if it would have been someone from the past, for instance from Maria's past in the area, it would be unlikely that he knew the Woods. Well, it would be possible, but yeah, a random person just seeking revenge on the Brothers family would not know anything about this house, since they couldn't even know that the Brothers family was about to move in. Another theory that is heavily debated online especially is that other people who would have wanted to rent or even buy the house but did not get the chance to buy the house because the Brothers family got accepted first are responsible for this. But this does also not make sense, because they changed the price twice. They wanted to move out 6 months later after originally buying it. If the Watcher would be a person who wanted to live there and was just upset that he did not get the permission to rent the house or buy the house, but instead the Brothers family got the permission and was accepted, then he would have, well, he would have bought the house just from the Brothers family, especially given the fact that he would even have gotten that, especially since he would have had to pay less, because the Brothers family was more and more willing to accept losses just to, well, get rid of the house. In fact, they sold it for a loss of $400,000, as previously mentioned. Yeah. In the end, I don't know what to think about this. I don't know who the Watcher is, and I think we may never know. But this is such an interesting case, and although no one got hurt, luckily, this is one of the most mysterious cases. Yeah, I would love to hear your theory on all of this. And again, if you have not subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more future content like this, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!